So my name's Eric Zabala. I'm a State Farm agent in Tumwater. And today we're going to kind of focus on all things small business, right? So the folks that I have up here are all small business owners, local business owners in our community. And we thought it would be insightful for you to kind of learn directly from business owners. And one of the things I really want to do too, once we get through a couple questions, is allow you time to kind of engage with them as well with any questions you might have, about small business ownership, challenges with business ownership, successes, things that you kind of learn throughout the process that many times you just don't know when you go to get into small business. And there are a number of factors that come into play. So just a little bit of background on myself. So I've been in the insurance industry for about 11 years. And prior to that, I was in the Army for 8 years as an MP. Nothing to do with insurance whatsoever, right? But one of the things I kind of learned throughout that is I really love working with people. And I realized that insurance ties into everything that we do with a business, whether it's figuring out what type of business entity you want to become, what's the best choice for your business, whether it's an LLC or an S-Corp. And really all of these things tie together. Much like I said in the previous panel, a lot of the industries have all these different positions that really make everything work. And so we're going to hopefully learn a little bit more about that. And I'm going to go ahead and let the panel introduce themselves. And we're going to start here with Kennon.
Awesome. Is this mic on? Turn on?
No.
Maybe? No? Okay.
How about now? There it is. Check it out. Tech savvy, My name's Kennon. I own 3 different companies. My wife and I own 3 different companies. I own a small real estate company, Maurer Home Group. We do residential and commercial sales, and then we also have a real estate investment division. We own Dust Cleaning Company, and we're probably best known for owning Ebony and Ivory Coffee. We have 3 locations. One of the locations is being right across the street here in Lacey.
All right.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mary Mays. My husband and I own Fourth Dimension Computers. It is a computer storefront in Olympia, Washington. We also own an investment company, and I own a travel agent. I guess not agency. I'm just a travel agent on my side. We have owned Fourth Dimension for almost 5 years. It's been in the community for 25 years. So it is well developed in our community, and we are always striving to grow it. Before we owned Fourth Dimension Computers, I was a manager at a bakery for 15 years. So something very, very different, but equally as rewarding. So.
All right, good morning, everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out and being here. So I do not own multiple businesses, I just own one. So we've got a small little mom and pop plumbing shop called APD Plumbing and Mechanical. We are home of 888 Plumber, which we have purchased nationwide, so the intent is to grow it from a small mom and pop shop into a franchise across the nation.
All right, thank you. And for all you marketers, right? He has an awesome shirt on, which you just can't forget when you get into marketing, right? So we're going to go over a couple things that I'd asked these folks earlier. And we're going to start off with our first question here. And what has been the largest challenge in running your business? Have you found a way to overcome this challenge? And we're going to go ahead and start with Kennon.
Gosh, there's so many challenges. I mean, every single day is a challenge, in my opinion. The biggest challenge, let me just tell you about some of the challenges that we've had and some of the ways that we've overcome those challenges. Because I think it kind of evolved. It changes, like challenges change over time. When we were first getting started, and I'm talking about Ebony and Ivory specifically, when we first were getting started with opening a coffee shop, we had no idea how to open a coffee shop. So that was challenging. where do you even start? Turns out you need a business license. Huh, who knew? Turns out you need to get a permit for a food establishment from the health department. That's crazy. How do you do that? Didn't know how to do any of that stuff. Google was a huge help. That's how I overcame that first challenge. Then it was a lot of conversations with mentors on, okay, we've got this location, we have this this place, we have a business license, we have like health department permits and stuff. Now we need to hire like people. Didn't really know how to do that. That was kind of a challenge. How do you hire people? Well, you have to advertise saying that you're hiring for people. Well, that was a challenge because I'd never done that before. What does that even look like? Turns out there's like websites and things that you can put job postings on. This was all stuff that like, it seems really basic, but going back 3 years when we started Ebony and Ivory, I had never done any of that stuff before. And so it was pretty daunting and overwhelming to just figure out the very, very basic stuff. Fast forward to something like today. A few weeks ago, we opened our third location in downtown Tacoma. And now our challenges are much more sophisticated, like how do you take an empty space and turn it into a coffee shop versus just buying an existing coffee shop. So, over the last year, we've had to meet with engineers and architects and construction teams to figure out how to basically build something from the ground up. And literally every single day comes with its own challenges. And the way we overcome them as a whole, really, is you just kind of figure it out and you fail constantly over and over and over, and you really don't know what you're doing, and everybody tells you, you have no idea what you're doing. And you don't stop, you just keep going, and eventually things just kind of fall into place. It's pretty messy, actually, and maybe that might not be like the answer that you were necessarily expecting. Like, what's your challenges? How do you overcome them? Well, I have a challenge every day. I overcome it by just like plowing through it, and it's like super messy, and it leaves a lot of just ugly stuff, I guess, and you just keep going.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like, one thing in small business, much like anything, right? You're gonna fail, and I think one of the things it's kind of hard when you're looking at academics and stuff too, is it's okay to fail, right? As long as you're learning from it and then persevering and moving to that next step. There's lots of challenges that are going to come up, and it's really just breaking through that and becoming very resourceful, utilizing your resources, other business owners that you can learn from to really help with these challenges. All right, Mary, what do you got for us?
So I just wanted to piggyback off of Kennon. He's talking about all the like steps, like, oh, you have to get this business license, you have to do this. What he didn't say is that you're doing all these all at once. All this stuff is happening at one time. It's not a 7-month, 8-month process. You're doing it in a condensed timeline because you're wanting to get this going, right? So that's definitely a challenge. It's very stressful. Owning a business is stressful because you have the weight of your business on your shoulders, which also a lot of times includes employees. And as an employee, you depend on your employer to make sure that you're paid and that you're in a safe working environment. So that's definitely a challenge. One of our big challenges is balancing our slow times with our busy times. So like in our slow times, it's summer. People aren't coming in to get their computers repaired or to buy new computers during the summer because they're out enjoying summer. And so we have to make sure that our business can still maintain itself during the summer months and that our employees are getting enough hours to be able to feed themselves. That's very important to the core of who we are as business owners, that our employees are very important to us because without them, our business would not be successful. that's very, very important as a business owner, is understanding that you're only as strong as your team is, right? That's just how life is. So that's definitely one of our big challenges, is just making sure that we balance everything in our day-to-day operations. Another challenge is customers, right? Making sure that we're making our customers happy, treating them well, and building the reputation in the community to make sure that people trust us to take care of their computers when they bring them in. And so handling negative feedback, right? Because like reviews can kill you. So how you handle those reviews and make sure that an upset customer, you can turn that around and they feel better about the interaction. So always being humble and making sure you come at it like you're understanding your customer. That's so important and key to longevity in your community and in your business.
I would have to add on to that one of the big challenges that you don't really take into consideration is that while you're trying to grow this business, there's a lot of things that you just don't know that you don't know when it comes to running a business. You don't know that there's city business licenses in addition to state business licenses. You don't know that there's a lot of ongoing, continually changing regulations that start at the Senate that maybe pertain to your business that are coming your way. Maybe they don't. Maybe it pertains to materials that you deal with. Maybe it pertains to manpower. Maybe it pertains to how you handle manpower in time off. We've got a lot of new changes with Washington State and a lot of regulations like that. So always staying up to date inside of whatever industry that you're within on the legislation is very key. But how do you pay your rent? How do you put food on the table? How do you take care of all of those little expenses? How do you pay for time for yourself to go out and get away and have a mental break away from all of the stress and everything else when you're trying to run a business? So these are all things that you don't really take into consideration. We get gung-ho and we get headstrong in, I'm going to start a business and this is how I'm going to do it. And we have this great can-do spirit, and then it comes to the brass tacks of how do we pay those taxes? B&O tax, that comes every single month. You've got state taxes, federal taxes. There's a lot of things that you just don't know on the challenges. So definitely trying to plan out an end path for whatever business that you're trying to start is definitely a way that you can mitigate a lot of those oncoming challenges.
All right, thank you. Yeah, one of the things too is, like I mentioned, being resourceful. One of the things even I didn't know is, when I became a small business owner, like the amount of resources that are actually out there. And part of the challenge with resources is you have to know they're available as a resource, right? So when you have different organizations like the Economic Development Council, and they have a number of organizations within them that'll help you build your business plan, help you do market research, and most of it is free, right? So that's a big deal for a business. When you can get information and it doesn't cost you money, then why not take a look at it, right? Because things can get expensive real quick, and it is very difficult to have to wear all the hats. When you start a business, it's a great idea, but you have to work in your business typically, but then you also have to work on it, right? So you have all these operations aspects. You've got the HR, like I wear the HR hat, in our office too as well, / business owner. All these different things that you have to kind of juggle. And so many times I actually lean on a number of these folks just for their opinion within the business community, and really kind of building your network as you're learning and growing in this space, to kind of build the knowledge base of where you can go find these resources, right? So one of the biggest things is that business plan. There's a number of business owners, they've got the go-getter attitude, and they never do a business plan, but you lose a lot of money when you don't have a business plan. And so that's one thing you want to try to avoid. But the entrepreneur spirit, that they have is, what really drives them to, find find a kind of a niche business or something like that that they can take off and run with. But many times it's a challenge to kind of fill that void with a number of those things that you don't know. And that's where having the resources in the community, talking to other business owners really can make a big impact on what you do from here. So thinking back to when you started your business, what was something you wish you knew as a new business owner that you know now?
I'll take that one. But one of the things that has definitely been a big eye-opener and a surprise to me is frivolous lawsuits. When you start a business, it was mentioned earlier about how you have haters. Well, that's also a cost in business that you need to account for, because those haters are going to cost you money, whether it's in red tape, because they've turned you into this entity or that entity, and guess what? You just learned something you didn't know. You learned about a new license that you didn't have, or you learned about a new form that you're not having your customers sign. And oftentimes that learning curve comes with a financial penalty. That can rather be in the form of a citation, a fine, or maybe you're paying for legal representation that you weren't expecting to pay for. So that's definitely one to take into consideration, is making sure that you've got a little legal representation of some degree for your industry that you're in. Another thing that I wish that I would have known ahead of time is the power of job costing. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been general manager for some companies. And that was not something until I took some pretty aggressive business courses on the East Coast here about a year and a half ago. The power of job costing. So really knowing your industry really well, no matter what it is. Everything from the cost of that roll of toilet paper that you're going to have in your office to the taxes on the manpower at the end of the day. And once you have a good understanding of the power of job costing, then you can put into good use the power of forecasting. And if you can forecast next year's expenses, then you're going to stand a lot better chance of living through this year, because you're going to know what next year's increase of expenses are going to be.
So something I didn't know before I was a business owner was that it is okay not to have to do everything. You do not know everything, nor will you ever know everything, and it is okay to lean on other people that can do certain tasks better than you. You should utilize what you're good at, and you should put your efforts into that and let people that are professionals help you do the things that you're not so good at. So for example, like bookkeeping, maybe you're not good at bookkeeping. Hire a bookkeeper. Work with your accountant. You don't need to do that if that's not something that is your strong point. Another thing that's really important, I think, that I didn't really necessarily understand as well, is the power of organization. Having a good system of organization will take you very far, because there's going to be things that come up that like happened a year ago, and if you have a good organization going on, then you can go back and you know where to find that paperwork that backs up, no, I've actually filed that, or yes, I know what happened here. That way you have something to fall back on, and you're not just flailing or not being able to prove that you've done something that you have. It can save you a lot of money. It can save you a lot of time. And as we all know, time is money. And maybe you don't know that yet, but you will learn that very well, that if you waste your time, it will cost you money. And time, it's, as a small business owner, your time is just so important, and utilizing your time in an efficient way is super important.
I think for me, one thing that I really wish that I knew before starting Ebony and Ivory is that success isn't necessarily just about money. How I learned that was coffee is a fairly high turnover industry. You lose employees like all the time just because it's kind of a stepping stone job. But over the last year, we've had 4 people leave our company, whether they were fired or just quit. 3 of them quit. 1 of them was fired. all three of the people that quit, within 2 months of leaving, they came back to us and said, hey, is there any way that I could get my job back? And I was like, when that happened, I was like, well, you left because you were getting, a $5, $6, $7 an hour raise to go to this other spot. And they're like, well, yeah, but like, Kennon, like, when you come into the shop, you ask me things like, how's it going? And like, you take like 30 seconds to like listen to my answer back to you. And my new manager at this other job that I have has never talked to me a day in their life. They don't care about me. And you and Kenzie's my wife, actually care about the people that work for your company. You not only care about like the people in your company, you care about like the customers as well. And that was so interesting for me to hear because as a business owner, I'm typically like really interested in my profit and loss statements. How much money did I make? Like, I got into business to make money, right? That's why we get into business. But sometimes you don't make any money. Actually, a lot of times, especially when you're starting out, you lose money just like constantly, like just over like month after month. Like, why did I lose money? Like, oh my gosh, my business sucks. Like, I'm not successful. But I have people coming to me being like, hey, I really loved working for you. And like, you made me like feel like I belong somewhere. Like, to me, that is way more impactful and makes me feel way more successful than the money that I make. So I wish I knew that earlier because I think in like the first year of business, we had like a pretty significant amount of turnover. And I think the reason that was is because like all I cared about was like how much money can I make, which was definitely a mistake in my opinion.
Yeah, and that's a good point. I mean, you learn a lot about your people, your employees, right? Everybody typically wants to take care of others, but how everybody else perceives that information, like as your employees, is different. So if you've ever heard the treat others the way you want to be treated, it's kind of false, right? You want to treat others the way they want to be treated. And that's different for a lot of folks, but some people just like to be thanked for the day, right? For the work that they do. Some people just want to sit, be listened to. And so employees, obviously that's your bread and butter to your business because that's going to help you grow, throughout the years that you're doing business. And so it's important to really have that employee engagement piece to be able to connect with them and hopefully try to retain employees. Yes, sometimes it is a stepping stone. But if it is a stepping stone, who cares, right? How do you get your employee to be a better version of themselves? So you have to think a little bit differently of then how do I take this individual and how do I then help them get to their next step, send them off in the community, become, hopefully a future leader or a better community member, right? And then just take that next person that comes in under the wing and do the same exact thing. If you think about it differently, you really have a different value in terms of what you present as a business. And many times you'll find with employees, it isn't about the money, right? I think there's statistics out anyway that after 90 days, even of a raise with an employee, it's kind of obsolete at that point. They're not too worried about it, right? It's really how are you treating them? Are you talking to them about their families? What's going on? And really figuring that out and what makes them tick and just taking the time to build those relationships. It's amazing what that can actually do, for your business and how it'll build your business to really add value within the community where you didn't think it really would. Because we do focus on those profits. It's important stuff too, right? You got to run your business and make money, otherwise it doesn't work for anybody. But you can't do it without people. So there are several issues that can impact our business environment. This could be related to technology, social changes, or economic and political shifts, as we kind of heard with the previous panel. Have there been any significant impacts you've encountered in your industry, and how were you affected?
I'll go first this time. I'll fall on the sword. So I mean, I guess we're gonna talk about COVID because COVID's, it's still impacting our day-to-day lives, right? Not as much as it used to, but back when COVID happened, we were deemed essential because people were working from home, right? And so we really didn't know how that was going to affect our business. And so we kind of sent people home, and we had bare bones crew going on, and we were busy. We were so busy, and that was because people needed what we had so that they could still effectively work from home, right? And so we had a banner year in 2020, and which was fabulous. 2021, not so much, because everyone had spent all their money to set themselves up in 2020. So we had that challenge to deal with. And that was a real big impact, directly to our business. But on the tail end of that too, we had the issues of supply chain and not getting things that we needed, and the cost of goods going up. So where a high-end video card was $1,000, it went up to like $4,000, and so that's a huge leap, right? And that is a challenge for a business that's, we're selling products. And just being able to get them in and be able to explain to our customers why this costs so much. Chips were so expensive, and you see that in cars, like the computer chips that go in the cars. We were having those problems too, and it was just causing so much issue with us being able to get stuff at affordable pricing, which, impacted our bottom line and impacted what we were selling. And it was impacting not our employees, but our customers and what they could afford to get for what they wanted. So that was definitely, just a big impact and a shift in our industry. And luckily, we've kind of gone back the other way, and these parts are way more affordable now. I mean, they're still, expensive, but they're not 2021 expensive to where they were pretty much unattainable for the average person.
I think something that changes all the time is like government stuff. You have state, county, city, and what I can say, being in 3 different cities and 3 different counties for my business, all 3 of those locations have completely different rules, and the rules change at different times, and it's ridiculous. Mostly around like health department. So like the health department, if you're like in the food industry, it changes like constantly, but like it's not statewide. So Thurston County, there hasn't really been a whole lot of changes like over the last couple of years. Pierce County, there's like a ton of changes, and it's totally different than what Thurston County has, which is also totally different from what King County has. And so staying up to date with that is like, honestly, it's so hard. It's nearly impossible. And you get in trouble sometimes. The health department comes in and they say, hey, you're not doing this specific thing correctly. And it's like, oh, I didn't know that specific thing even existed. And they're like, well, it didn't last time you did an inspection. And, you just kind of have to deal with that. But that's it's a frustration for sure. Another thing that changes that I certainly feel on the coffee shop side of things, minimum wage goes up. Every year I've been in business for Ebony and Ivory, and at least for the next 2 years, all of my employees are going to be getting raises. They're excited about that. But there's something that happens on the back end when minimum wage all of a sudden just goes up. So most of my employees start at minimum wage, and then they make tips, and so they make decent money. But when minimum wage goes up 3% one year, and then it goes up 3% the next year, how am I supposed to make that money back? Well, I have to raise prices. Well, what happens when I raise prices? Well, people get really upset, and they wonder why things are super expensive. And so you have to always be educating customers and trying to explain your side of the story when things that are completely outside of your control get changed on you, randomly, or even when you can plan to expect those things. It can be fairly difficult.
Yeah, and real quick on that, that's one thing you'll figure out too, like when you get into business ownership, if it's $16 an hour, it's never just a flat $16 an hour. You'll see all sorts of stuff on the back end that the business and stuff is responsible for, and many times it ends up getting passed to the consumer, right? Because where else is it going to come from, at a certain point? And so you kind of learn those challenges. It's hard on the consumer end, but it's actually one of the reasons that when taxes and stuff are presented, many times they work on taxing the business because it's an indirect way to tax the consumer. Because you're going to pay for it in the cost of goods, right? And so that part, it's hard for people to understand unless you kind of get into, business management or business ownership, of like learning really what the true cost is on the back end for your product and services and what that looks like for the purchaser. So.
Well, to add on to that, so you heard here, Mary has got the computer industry, and then the coffee industry here, and these are very common industries where 85% of the world drinks coffee, and almost everybody's got a computer these days. So let's talk about the industry of service or manpower, and that's where I come from. 3% a year sounds pretty scary when you start thinking about that, and you start compounding. That's 3% this year, and then that's times another 3% last year. Well, in the service industry, we're run more like a 7 to a 13% compounding price increase. So over the course of my career, I have quite literally watched prices of materials and labor charged to the consumer go up 700%. That dramatically adds to the cost of housing. That's not money that's ever going to come back down. Interest rates might fluctuate, but the cost to get your plumbing replaced in your house has gone from something that you would set aside a week's worth of pay, and now you could have all of your plumbing replaced in the house. And now it's moved into something that you had better be busting out 1 credit card, 2 credit cards, 3 credit cards sometimes, possibly even going to the bank for a loan, because that 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom house that you got at a great rate, that's 100 years old, well, now it needs a $35,000 to $45,000 plumbing system needs to be replaced. And that doesn't include the drywall or the paneling to the walls that'll have to be replaced as well. So by the time you're said and done, you've got $65,000 to $100,000 worth of repairs into your house, and now the roof just started leaking. So what do you do now? The furnace just went out. These are all costs that as if you're trying to grow a business and you own a house as well, these are also costs that you have to deal with. But, things do get better as well. So, like throughout my career, we started with map books and trying to find houses via map book, So nowadays we've got, our phones will give us directions on how to get exactly to their front door. That can save sometimes a couple hours of being lost out in the middle of nowhere. Battery-powered tools have drastically improved in my career. So it was kind of a novice idea at the beginning, and now we don't even hardly pack extension cords in the van. So there's a lot of things that COVID, I hate talking about COVID. COVID definitely, everything doubled or tripled since then. One of the biggest things that we deal with now is there's a new mindset of people. There's a lot more recluses or introverts. And so they don't like to have service people in their home to see what's going on. So a lot of the times we're having to overcome that challenge of our office people have to spend sometimes 20 or 30 minutes just to convince the consumer that it is okay for us to be there. We are there on their side. We're going to take care of them. So these are some other interesting things that have also shifted in our industry.
There's a number of challenges and stuff, right, that we've kind of talked to, a lot of things that you kind of don't know. It's like, would anybody here go back to working for somebody else?
Not a chance.
Yeah, right? I mean, there's a lot of perks and stuff to being a business owner with the autonomy and just being able to like create, your ideas, right? You're putting your ideas and your thoughts and everything into motion and really, building whatever vision you have. And even though it's challenging, to be honest, part of the fun is the challenge. But when you have those like successes and stuff from it, it's twice as rewarding than, to be honest, like working for somebody else. And it's because it's that pride and ownership, and the fact that you made it happen, right? And typically it has a lot of positives, like in terms of how it impacts your employees. And just being able to see all of that in motion, I think is why a lot of people, like to get into running a business. I mean, there's a lot of great things that come from it. So one of the things I want to do as well, just kind of curious to hear what kind of questions or anything that you guys are thinking, right? We've thrown out a lot of information on different things, but, it's like, what's going through your guys' mind? What are some things you want to know? That we can ask some of these folks, or just what's going on? Do you guys have any questions out there? Go ahead.
So my question is for Kennon. So did you see like a gap in like a need for like a coffee in the area, or did you have like an interest in it before you?
Did I see a need for coffee in the coffee capital of the world? No. It was just, my wife had always done coffee. She was a barista, worked her way up, became a manager, got to the point where she was managing like 4 different locations of this company, and she wanted to go to the next level. And I was like, well, the only way that you can really go to the next level is like own the company. And, right? Like, it's kind of funny, but, so she was like, yeah, I guess that makes sense. And we had that conversation in like 2019. In 2020, a coffee shop came up for sale here in Lacey, and it was a really good deal. And, we had saved up a little bit of money, and I was like, do you want to buy this coffee shop? She was like, yeah, sure. And that's how we did it. I mean, it wasn't like I'm just being honest with you. It wasn't like let's do like a whole bunch of market research and like figure out like, what kind of need is there for like another coffee shop. There's not another need for a coffee shop. There's like 12 of them within like a mile of us. Like there's a whole bunch. And they're all over the place. And we're in like in downtown Tacoma where we have a new location. I think there's 4 coffee shops like within 1 block of us. Like seriously, like it's crazy. But I don't know. I think for us, we kind of looked at our coffee shop as like, let's be the place where like everybody wants to come. And what we did was all of our coffee shops are attached to some kind of space where people can do events. And so that was one thing that kind of set us apart. Another thing that kind of set us apart is we are massively creative in the way that we present our coffee. So we do coffee flights, which there's really not a lot of, like, right? I love that reaction, by the way. Thank you. There's not a lot of places that do coffee flights. But we change our coffee flights every month because there's people that have emerged that are like, oh, we're going to start doing coffee flights too. But it's hard for them to keep up with us because we're always like 6 months out with like new flights. So like for the next 6 months, we're going to have 4 new flavors on a flight like every month, and it's going to be something new like constantly. So we try to stay cutting edge and different and unique, and I think in a competitive business industry, that's what you have to do. It's okay if there's competition. I like competition. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Well, I imagine something like that too is probably a good way to do a little bit of product testing as well, right? To figure out what people like. So.
My question is for all three of you. One of you guys said near the beginning of the panel that when you're starting out your business, it's a lot of loss before you see any profit, and you guys are all a part of very different industries. What is the amount of time you would expect before you see profit, like versus like startup costs and like products and stuff like that?
So for me, we've been doing this for 8 years. And to look back 8 years ago now, the dream was to be a whole lot bigger than we are now. But then again, comes back to the you don't know what you don't know. So when we started out our business, we actually started out under the name A Plumbing Doctor. And within 2 years of being in business, we were served with a cease and desist letter from another plumbing company out of California that was trademarked. And so after about a $50,000 investment in getting started, we were literally brought to our knees and had to start over again. Well, you don't get to go back to the bank and you don't get to borrow more money at that point in time. You've got to pay back what you've already borrowed before you get to borrow more. And so through that process, as things got more expensive as the years went on, and not having that end goal, I think is really what I would refer you back to is being very headstrong in, I want to run a business and this is what I want to do. But the question at some point comes, what does this look like? And that was really a question that when you start applying that question to every aspect, okay, well, I want to hire an employee. I want them to start Monday morning. Well, what does that look like? Well, what time do they show up? Well, what do you want them to dress like? So that was a great question for us in as our growth was, what does that look like? And then another question that we like to ask along our process was, as we ask different businesses, what is the worst thing that you've ever had to overcome in a business? And so having a little heads up on what you might be on the lookout for hurdles coming up is also a great piece that helped us out.
Aren't we underselling what you do, Michael? Because you get to kick in doors.
I know that is your favorite story.
So for our business, we purchased an established business. So we had an investment that we are still currently paying for. There's a 10-year loan on this business loan that we took out. We turn a profit every single year. We've not had a year where we've had a loss, but we do have that liability, right? No matter how, if you take out a loan to buy a business, to start up your business, you're gonna pay off that liability eventually. But there's always liabilities in your business in terms of cost of goods and just the cost of doing business. So in terms for our business specifically, our payoff will be at 10 years. Now we pay over what we owe monthly on our bill so that we can pay that off more quickly because we have that capital to be able to do that. And just because we want to be able to put that money to work in our business in other ways to create new streams of revenue, which is super important to keep specifically our industry limping along, right? Because repairing a computer starts to not make sense when you can buy a new computer for $200-300, right? And so we're just always trying to find ways to make our business to evolve. And so there's expenses there. But yeah, so for us, it'll probably be another 2 years before we pay off our business. And so then we would see all profit for what we've put in.
I've got something. I think it depends on what industry you're in. For my real estate company, I did like one deal and I was like immediately profitable, and we've been profitable every month for 5 years. I mean, that's a really industry.
The real world doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's an easy industry to be fairly profitable in, real estate sales specifically. The coffee shop, we turned a profit after 9 months. I didn't really take any money out of the company until like 2 months ago, and we've been in business about 2.5 years. And the reason I did that is because we were focused on growth. So all the money that we were making was being pushed back into the company to help it grow. But I think it just depends on what industry you're in. And I think there was 2 parts to your question, right? You said like about like how much do you expect for like startup costs? What kind of industry are you thinking about?
Well, I mean, just in general, because I don't have a specific interest. I just know I'm interested in the field of business, but I don't have like a specific field as of yet.
Got it. I probably can't speak to that then.
So for us, it cost us $250,000 to purchase our business, and it's a almost $2 million business a year. So it just depends whether you're starting from scratch or if you're buying a pre-existing business. It varies so much. There's no way without having a specific to be able to really appropriately answer that.
And I guess just a quick add-on to that. So with no manpower, no material purchasing, just for us to be in existence, our business cost us $93,000 a year just to be in existence.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that is a big variation. So like I'm a full independent contractor as well. So many times it's still pretty average depending on the industry that like you're not going to make a whole lot of money between 3 and 5 years. And a lot of it's going to be industry specific, right? But during that time, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not making any money. Like we made money first year, but I also didn't pay myself the first year and how I designed it. So I'm absorbing a certain cost. But you're also reinvesting a lot into your money or into your business. So that way you can grow it over that 3 to 5 years and hopefully then, create a sustainable model for whatever the industry is. But it's really going to vary a lot on like whatever, like you've got lease costs, you've got whatever your industry is, if you're purchasing, office furniture, all these different things that are involved. So many times I'd say it's very hard to get into an industry for under like $50,000, depending on what that initial investment is going to be, for it. But it is hard unless you've got like a specific industry. That's where like the Economic Development Council knows when you build that business plan. That's your bread and butter to figure out those things, and the market research for the industry that you decide to go into.
My question's for Mary. As someone who is in the computer industry, when you have to face scarcity with components, how do you find ways around that issue?
Well, that's definitely a real big challenge. We have many vendors that we work with, and sometimes we have to pay a little bit more to be able to get these products in our shop. And so, unfortunately, that turns over to the product costs and our consumers. So just having a lot of different variety of vendors that we have access to, we always want to go with the best one that has the best cost so that, and that has availability. But like sometimes that doesn't happen, right? And in our industry, the products change quickly. They evolve. We get new components and the newest, the latest, and trying to make sure that we balance what everybody's really kind of wanting, but also bringing in stuff that is newer that maybe will sit on the shelf because it's a little bit more expensive, but having it available to our customers that do want that latest, greatest, usually gamers, coming in looking, to get their stuff. And a lot of times, though, these really latest and greatest, it's well beyond what you would even be playing as a gamer. So it's really interesting. But yeah, we have a variety of vendors, and unfortunately, sometimes we have to use those ones that are a little bit more expensive.
So I had a question for all of you. My question was, since starting your business, what are you most proud of, or what is the most memorable to you since you started?
That's a tough question. I'm super proud of like just how we've maintained our business and grown it. That's really important. Growing your business is really hard, and trying to find something that will propel your business forward and give you versatility, and it's challenging sometimes. Like them coming up with their flights. That's another way to bring people in. That it's unique, it's interesting, it's fun. For us, we added on laser engraving, which is kind of a little bit different, but it's still that technology driven. And we have ebbs and flows in that, but it's kind of a unique, fun thing that brings in other different types of clientele that we wouldn't have necessarily had, right? It took a little bit to get it off the ground, to get a name in the community for, hey, this is something that they do. We have people come in that specifically come in just for our laser engraving now that would never even came into our business because of our computer stuff. So definitely proud of finding a new source of revenue that bolsters our business, that gives us something else to give us a future to that when something kind of phases out, that we have something else that's kind of taken over.
I'm pretty proud that Ebony and Ivory, like I purchased the company less than 3 years ago, and we now have 3 locations across 3 different counties. Pretty proud of that.
Set your goals high, smash the shit out of them, and never look back. Quite honestly, like we're always stuck in this is where I want to be, this is where I want to go, I'm never going to get there, that's such a mountain to climb. And you turn around and you look back and you're like, wow, look at where I've come from. And sometimes you just gotta pat yourself on the back, and sometimes you just gotta give yourself the little reminder of where you came from. You gotta remind yourself that, hey, there was a day when I couldn't pay that bill because, my account was overdrawn. Or there was a day that bill maybe had to wait a month to get paid because, the guys had to be paid or something else was more important. So there's always this perpetual dream that should never stop growing. There's always this new target of where you want to hit, and someday you hit that target, and then you want to set a new one, and so it always feels like you're always climbing uphill, and so set those dreams, remember them, and never turn back.
You're forgetting about your super cool eco-friendly van that you just purchased. That's awesome. That's something to be proud of.
We are the first plumbing company to be rocking a fully electric, brand new van in the, at least on this side of the Cascades, if not the entire western United States.